Hey guys, I'm Comire, and right now, Nintendo Labo is letting kids and grown-ups across the world construct incredible cardboard play centers around the Nintendo Switch. As you might already know, Nintendo have a long history as a toy maker. So, on this episode of Start and Select, we're going to be going through a guided tour of Nintendo's history in toys. Must have made a mistake somewhere. I don't know if you know this, but Nintendo started in 1889. That's right, 1889, like 130 years ago. You know, way back before Love Island or the Emoji Movie, way back before the video of that guy riding an invisible horse. So, to get to the toys, I'ma speed through the first 70 or so years, okay? Ready, set, Labo. In 1889 Japan, Fusajiro Yamauchi created a company to make and sell Hanafuda playing cards called Nintendo Comire, the commonly held translation of Nintendo being Leave Luck to Heaven. The government at the time were cracking down on the gambling scene by removing traditional playing cards. Fusajiro exploited this gap in the market and made a fortune selling his non-traditional picture cards. I mean, the Yakuza was just using the Hanafuda cards for gambling anyway, so when you think about it, Nintendo are really just making money off of organised crime. But hey, look, we have a dancing Luigi now! Fusajiro had a daughter called Tei who married a man named Sakirio. As it was tradition for a father to pass on a company to his son, Fusajiro adopted Sakirio, making him Sakirio Yamauchi, and he took over in 1929. Of course, Fusajiro adopting his son-in-law technically makes Tei and Sakirio both man and wife and brother and sister. But look at the dancing Luigi! Sakirio had a daughter called Kimi who married Shikanojo. Sakirio again did the old husband, wife, brother, sister maneuver, dancing Luigi, dancing Luigi, dancing Luigi, dancing Luigi, dancing Luigi, bringing Shikanojo into the Yamauchi clan. They had a son called Hiroshi, but sadly Shikanojo went all Ash Ketchum's dad and left the family. Young Hiroshi was sent to live with Grandpa Sakirio and his sister wife, Tei. In 1949, at the age of 22, Hiroshi Yamauchi took over the company from his grandfather, eventually renaming the company Nintendo in 1963 after several preceding name changes due to joint ventures and reorganizations in manufacturing and distribution, as well as changing from a logo that looks like it could conjure Satan under the right circumstances. Even though Hiroshi landed a successful deal selling Disney-themed Hanafuda cards, he felt the money in cards were drying up. So from the mid-1960s, Nintendo turned its eye to toys, making several sporting games and a bunch of racing games that look like, well, exactly what Hot Wheels in the mid-1960s would look like. Having to make new ideas in quick succession, plus competition from established toy makers like Bandai and Tomy, made things so difficult for Nintendo, convincing the world their kids should spend time with a grown man in a mustache and a pair of dungarees seemed like a cakewalk by comparison. To stay afloat, they would enter licensing agreements, allowing them to sell toys and board games made by overseas companies in Japan. Among the many, there was Twister and Marble from MB Games, the Mack Rider and Shot Racer toys from Hasbro, and many tie-ins with the Japanese TV show Ultraman. In 1965, Nintendo hired a man by the name of Gunpei Yokoi. Several years later, he'd go on to basically invent handheld gaming, as well as the weirdest Final Smash known to man. But in 1966, well, I mean, he was a guy in the office playing with toys. You see, Hiroshi Yamauchi discovered an extending arm lying around that Gunpei made for fun. Hiroshi liked it and told him to develop it in time for Christmas, presumably under the agreement that if he did, he wouldn't fire him for wasting company resources. The Ultra Hand would go on to be a commercial success. It was then joined by two more toys in the Ultra series, have small cameos in Majora's Mask America 8, and, most importantly, make sure a young man wouldn't make a sign saying "Will game develop for food." Gunpei Yokoi with Nintendo pumped out more and more toys throughout the late 60s to early 80s. There were a few puzzle games like the popular 10 Billion, Nintendo's answer to the Rubik's Cube, as well as a remote control forklift and a car that could only turn left. Don't ask. In 1971, they re-released several of their previously made games and more in the mini game series. Because Nintendo, selling nostalgia back to people, well, that's something they would never do. And speaking of selling familiar ideas, let me tell you something about the Nintendo N&B Block series. In the late 60s, Nintendo somehow managed to delight children, disturb adults, and do dreadful things to a Danish toy distributor. A triple threat that would only be achieved again by one Mr. Will Ferrell. The Nintendo Lego-alike brick-building toy was so similar to the original, they could actually be mixed and matched. But Nintendo won the lawsuit that Lego inevitably launched because the N&B used a slightly different interlocking method and circular blocks. So, in case you're keeping score, that's now gambling, profiteering, potential incest, and barely legal copyright infringement. Don't say I don't do anything for you. In 1970, Gunpei Yokoi dabbled in light-based technology with Masayuki Umura. Their work led to the Kosenju SP and Custom series, toy guns that fired a beam of light at a sensor that, when hit, would make the target light up or even break apart. I don't know about you, but the guns look so uncharacteristically realistic, they look like something you'd find in John Wick's glove compartment. They also made a spy cam walkie-talkie and encouraged teenagers to shoot up in abandoned bowling alleys. Eventually, the world would welcome the NES Zapper and Super Scope for the NES and SNES. So far, the only guilt-free way to create a black hole or shoot a dog in the face. From 1977 onwards, Nintendo would go on to release the Color TV game series, which led on to the Game & Watch line, and eventually this little unknown doohickey, you probably never heard of it, the Nintendo Entertainment System. But even though Nintendo are moving to the video games business we know them for today, they kept making more toys than Tony Stark makes cosplay armor. They made Rob, a peripheral less used than Kaylee Cuoco's iCloud account, to make American buyers think the NES wasn't a games console, but a novelty toy. You see, Nintendo Labo uses cardboard to make the Switch games console a more interesting thing to interact with. And when you think about it, that's exactly how Nintendo have used toys for a long time now. I mean, this is the company that took a hat, turned that into a symbol, and turned that into a profit. Do you really think they wouldn't sell you a Nintendo Power Glove? By adding an accelerometer and game cartridges, they were able to make games like Kirby Tilt and Tumble on the Game Boy Color and Yoshi Topsy Turvy on the Game Boy Advance, where you physically turned and tipped the handheld, transforming the console into a toy itself. Coincidentally, two series that would imitate more than just transcendent tummies. What about the DK Bongos for the GameCube Donkey Konga games and Jungle Beat? Lest we never forget a time when Guitar Hero once ruled the earth. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver on Nintendo DS. It came with a Poke Walker, a Digivice, a device that let you take a Pokemon out and about with you like a real Pokemon trainer. A godsend for all those wide-eyed 90s kids who, at long last, had a chance to prove they weren't 100% responsible for all those dead Tamagotchis. During the Wii's lifetime, several Wii Remote shells came to market, like the officially licensed Wii Zapper with Link's crossbow training and Wii Wheel with Mario Kart Wii. Or the less official tennis rackets, baseball bats, golf clubs, and anything else that works as both a piece of sporting equipment and a child's murder weapon. And then the Nintendo toy range you can play with, you can collect, and even get married by it. The Amiibo series launched alongside Super Smash Bros. In 2014, rivaling Activision's Skylanders and Disney Infinity. After seeing off the competition, they're now so popular, they even have their own breakfast cereal. And hey, Nintendo's past business ventures weren't all plain sailing. There's a long list of failed experiments which includes instant rice, a cotton candy machine, a vacuum cleaner, a baby stroller, storage furniture, a drum set, an office photocopier, a taxi service, a series of love hotels, don't even ask, and the Seattle Mariners baseball team. Which, get this, the president never even went to see play. I mean, that's just rude. Something about Nintendo that's different than Sony or Microsoft. Sony is a consumer electronics company and Microsoft is a digital PC electronics company. Nintendo, with great respect and pride, is a toy company and always has been. That's why their franchises on the game side are so powerful. To invest in what is essentially a core attribute of what they do separates them from Microsoft and Sony. Robbie Back recognizes something there. That Nintendo's old toy maker discipline, combined with their newer game development know-how, can create unique experiences that people will love. The Nintendo Labo is just another example of that genius at work. Although, if there's one thing that ain't so clever, it's making a fishing rod out of something that turns into a useless brown pile around water. Am I right? And if you want a closer look at any of the old Nintendo toys that I've brought up, including the 2 times they kind of already did the Labo, I recommend checking out the Before Mario blog. It's a great little archive for all this stuff. I'll leave it in the references link in the description. But now, I'd like to introduce you to a new segment I'm adding to Start and Select that I'm calling Comire's Content. I'm really excited about it. It's where I get to highlight something cool that I see around the internet, including some of your comments. This first one comes from Kurt D'Souza Snares, who's really excited for God of War and Detroit Become Human. I mean, I'm excited too. Who isn't excited to become a massive, bloodthirsty psychopath that kills anyone that gets in their way? I mean, I'm not really talking about the games now, I'm talking about me when I can't put that big robot Labo kit together. But you know what, that's neither here nor there. I want to know from you now, are there any Nintendo toys that I forgot to mention that you can think of? Or do you have a cool idea for a Nintendo toy that you think that they should make? Let me know down below. Or chuck me a tweet. But you know what? For now, I've been Comire. This has been Start and Select. Thank you. And good night. Practical positives. What about all the awesome stuff they can do? Apparently, at some point, it wasn't enough that a video game console played video games. Now they all come built in with a camera, music player, internet browser. You can buy movies for the PSP, and that was back in 2004. The original iPhone didn't come out till 2007.